All right, everybody, and welcome to Weekly Momentum. I am your host, Marianne Emma Jeff, also known as the Get It Done Diva. And I'm doing once a month these Plan Your Week with me. That way I can go through the process of Weekly Momentum with you. A lot of you are already fans of my podcast, which is called Weekly Momentum. Trying to make it easy here so that you know what you're doing, right? And so, Weekly Momentum, the podcast, is an opportunity for you to, yes, to do the process and have the reminder every Monday to do your weekly momentum process. But the podcast also brings in other tools. And so, I wanted to do once a month where we just do a pure plan your week with me so it doesn't get confusing, especially for people that are newer. And we can come back to just the habit of planning your week, which has been for me for decades now an incredibly powerful tool. So we're going to go through all 4 steps. I'm going to make it super clear and simple for you. If it's your first time, don't worry. And I know that we have a lot of you here who are loyal. You've been using my planners, the momentum planners, and you've been showing up and you've been doing weekly momentum. It started out as monthly momentum a long time ago. And so I want to shout out to all of you that are watching, either watching the replay or watching live, and say thank you for showing up, because it really is amazing how many people really embrace and get benefit from the process of doing weekly momentum. So let's just talk about that for a second before we jump in. So what is the point in, the whole planning your week thing? Why is it such a big deal? Why do I talk about it all the time? As business owners, there may be gray areas, but most of the time we're going to fall in one of 2 areas, okay? You're going to fall into the category of feeling like you are so busy that you don't know which way is up, and you're just kind of one of the examples I use with sometimes with my clients is it's like you're painting the train as it's driving along, or you're painting the airplane as it's taking off and flying. That's what it can feel like having your own business sometimes, because you just feel like there's so much going on and you can't stop anything. You can't slow it down long enough to actually plan and get your head in the game and even have some input in where you're going, because things are just going, right? So there's a lot of times in your business where you're going to feel like that. But there's also going to be times in your business where you feel lost, overwhelmed, confused, bored, unable to think about what to do next, maybe struggling and you don't have clients or customers, and you're starting to spiral down a little bit and you're feeling all of this space in your calendar and it doesn't feel like a good thing. So it's so interesting that we want to have space in our calendar. We want to have some time when we are throttling forward. And then when we do have time, often it can be a really difficult time as well. And what I love about weekly momentum is whether you feel like you're so busy that you can't even hold on to your hat and the plane's taking off and you're painting it, or if you feel like you need a moment, you need a reset, that you're feeling like you don't know what to do and you have too much time, either one of those things, planning your week is going to help you. It's going to get your head in the game. I promise you, no matter how you're feeling right now. In fact, let's start with that. So what we're going to start with, and let me see here. What do we got? I got all of these great scenes. I'm going to go right to this one. So we're going to start with the emotional thermometer. It's a fancy way of just asking you how you feel, but forcing you to not say good or great, because that's not really answering the question. So if you have one of my momentum planners, and shout out, if you don't, you can grab the weekly planning pages in Weekly Momentum 101. You can download them for free in the link below. There's videos on the whole process and everything. So don't feel left out. Everything you need is right there as well. So one of the pages right here, and there's a video, there's also a video on it in the Weekly Momentum 101. There is a emotional scale here. And emotional scale is just a way for you to really lean into how you feel right now. And as you begin the weekly momentum process, it is an absolute perfect time for you to be taking your emotional temperature. And let's try to remember to do it at the end as well, because when I do that, when I bookend anything like this that I'm doing with taking my emotional temperature, it always is helpful for me to see the before and after. So this right now on the emotional scale, how are you feeling? Are you feeling bored? Are you feeling enthusiastic? Are you blissed out? Are you feeling hopeless or angry or blame? And what I really love about the emotional scale, and it originally came from Abraham Hicks, and then I fine-tuned it and made it my own a little bit. But what I love about it is that when you identify where you are right now, no matter where you are on the scale, you can look around and see what's above that and what's below it, so that you know which direction you're going in. Because you know true north is the top: joy, appreciation, freedom, love, bliss, right? And so you know you want to move in that direction. And if you're moving any emotion towards that, you know you're moving in the right direction. So take a moment, just even if you don't have all of the worksheets and everything, don't worry about it. Just sit there for a minute, and without using the word good and great, just ask yourself, how do I feel right now? And give yourself a moment to answer it and to really ask yourself, how do I feel right now? Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the 4 steps. And actually, I want to just give you the overview of them, just in case this is your first time. So the 4 steps that we have, there's rewind, there's realign, there's plan, and there's plug in. So there's 4 steps to the process. And we're going to start here in step 1, which is rewind. And what I love about rewinding is it gives you an opportunity to, as it says here, mine the next week for gold. It's soothing. When you do this regularly, I've been doing it every week for decades. And I know many of my clients and my members have been doing that too. And you're going to get to the point where when you don't do it, it's going to feel like something's off, something's missing. So what you do is you look back at the last week. There's 7 questions that you can answer in the Momentum Planner. And they're also in those weekly Momentum 101 pages. This is the weekly evolution. And I called it that originally before I had the rewind, because I believe that every single week we evolve, right? If we catch it. So every single week, it's almost like there's a on-ramp to the next level, to an upgrade. And not necessarily massively significant upgrades, but every single week there is an opportunity for a little upgrade, for things to improve. But we only see that on-ramp if we take the time to rewind. Because when we rewind, we see things much clearer than if we just forge forward week after week. And so if you want to take that upgrade, why not? Like, imagine you were going on a really long flight and there was an upgrade, but yeah, I can't be bothered to just reflect for a few minutes to get the upgrade. No. And these upgrades that you're going to get from doing the rewind each week are going to be permanent. There are going to be things that then you'll have in your toolkit, or ways of showing up differently that you may stray from a little bit, but it'll be hard to let go of. So the questions that are in the weekly evolution are designed to get you thinking about the last week. And I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but if you're following along, if you have the planner or if you have the worksheets, you can be filling out these questions. There's what felt satisfying last week is the first question, which is really just to get you in the vicinity. Oh yeah, last week. What was last week, right? Because how many of you are already forging forward to the next week? What am I doing? Last week is like a blur, right? And so I want you to take a moment and just ask yourself, okay, well, what felt satisfying last week? Because isn't that ultimately the whole point, that we're actually going to feel satisfied? Like, That's a good benchmark to have. Not every week, every moment, every day is going to be like mind blowing and amazing and the best moment of our lives, but satisfying, right? Which is, on the emotional scale, it's right at that point where you tip over and you start climbing your way up to the more positive side of the emotional scale. So that's a great goal to have. And I think it helps for a lot of people who feel like, oh, it's all Pollyanna, you can't feel good all the time. No, but you could feel satisfied. You could feel satisfied. You could be striving for satisfaction, but you can only strive for satisfaction if you know what it is for you. And so this question, what felt satisfying last week, is an opportunity for you to dig around and get familiar with what you enjoy, with what you like, with what you want more of, with what you want less of. And that's why this question can be really powerful, because we can surprise ourselves and our tastes change. So start out like the little foreplay piece of the entire process here is that what felt satisfying last week. And then we move into how did last week match up with what you thought it was going to be in question number 2, which is great to ask so that you can really look at your expectations as you're setting up your week, as you're doing right now for this week that we're stepping into. You have expectations, and you had expectations last week as you began your week, whether you were doing it with me or the podcast or on your own or unofficially just kind of winging it. Doesn't matter. You had expectations. So did last week, did it align with those expectations that you had or not? And why not, right? Just getting a little bit clearer of what you expected and whether it panned out or not is really great. And for those of you who did do weekly momentum last week, this is the question number 2 here, where you're going to take score. So taking score is the weekly top 10 that we come up with by the end of this process each week. You come up with 10 things. You're going to score yourself. You're going to score 1 for every item that you complete. You're going to score a 2 if you knock something out of the ballpark. You're going to score a half point for any of the items that you said that you would do that you started. Doesn't matter how far along you got, and a 0 if you didn't do anything on the items. And it's just more about data, information, getting clear on what happened and what worked and what really went down with these metrics of scoring your week every week is really helpful to answer this question number 2. So those of you who are old hat with this and do the weekly momentum every week, then you have that. You can take score right now. And I would write that somewhere on question number 2. Question number 3, how did you improve your health and well-being last week? This, I love that I remind myself about this regularly because it's so easy, especially as business owners or professionals, that we get so caught up in everything that we don't take care of ourselves. So that question's there to just keep you thinking about taking care of yourself, your mental health, as well as your physical health. What did you put energy into last week is number 4. This one's to pull back the curtain and just get you thinking about, well, if I didn't get the week that I expected, what happened? Where did I put my attention and my energy, your focus, right? Where did you put that last week? Because most of the time, what you put your energy and your attention on, what you're focusing on is what's going to move forward. So if you didn't get what you expected from last week, it's probably because as you're answering this question, you'll realize you put your energy into other things than you really anticipated you would be doing at the beginning of the week. So where did that go? Were there vampires around? Were they sucking up all of your energy last week? Were there lots of distractions? It's easy to kind of point at those things, but you are in the driver's seat. And when you do start to recognize what are the distractions, what are the vampires, what is pulling your energy and attention, then you can make different choices as you move into the next week. And I do want to take a moment right here too to point something out. I have a new training. It's free. I'll pop it down below, but you may have already seen, if you're on my email list, you may have gotten emails about it. It's called the CEO Shift. It's really good. And it's a free training with four little videos that you can watch that are the three main shifts that you need to make as a business owner if you want to shift from doing everything and feeling overwhelmed to stepping into the CEO role. And trust me, this is not about, hey, delegate everything and hire people. This is the mental shifts that you need to make, and it's a really powerful training. And so it talks about being a leader as well, which is why I just thought about that. Excuse me. And so make sure that you check out the CEO Shift. It's a really great new tool that I just developed. All right, so now we move into, what did you put your energy into last week? Who did you connect with last week? And oftentimes people are stumped a little bit by this question. And it seems simplistic, but it really is as simple as just writing down the names of the people that you connected with last week, whether it was live in person. Last week was my daughter's graduation from college. So as I write down her name and the names of her friends on this question, I go back there. It takes me back to what happened. I reconnect. I realign with what happened this last week, right? And so, as silly and simple as it may seem, just reminding yourself, who are those people that you're hanging out with? I mean, we become the sum total of the people that we hang out with the most. In fact, it's often said, I think by Jim Rohn, the top 5 people that we hang out with the most. So just starting to notice a pattern each week when you write down who you hung out with, and then noticing how you're showing up. You know, the simplest example is to think of something like if you're not eating the way that you would like to, but the people you're hanging out with tend to love to go out for ice cream, right? So does it mean you have to not hang out with those people ever again? No, but do notice that the habits and behaviors, the beliefs of the people that you hang out with rub off on you. And so if you notice that you're not showing up in the way that you would like to, you want to create a winning social environment for that, then this question here, who did you connect with last week, is an opportunity for you to start deciding as we step into the next week to shift that. And it could be books that you're reading or podcasts that you're listening to. It doesn't need to actually be people that you literally know. But who were you hanging out with last week? And then we have the do-over question here, okay? So what were your do-overs now from last week? And so a do-over is literally that, is what would you do differently if you could do last week over? And all of the questions that have taken us to this moment right now are questions that are setting you up to answer this question. What would you do over? And I challenge you to come up with 3 things every single week that you would do differently. Every single week, there are 3 things that you could do differently. Little things. And this is you taking the upgrade. This is you acknowledging what it is and choosing it. This is you seeing things differently and choosing something differently. This do-over question is so powerful. And then, of course, you get to write down after that favorite moments from last week. And I really like to distill the whole thing down into 3 words that best describe last week. And so what that does is it takes everything that we've just looked at. And I like to take, when I'm doing this on my own, I probably take a good half an hour to do this. And honestly, I would do it on a Sunday afternoon in my hammock. I don't know if I have room for everybody, but that's my place of choice to do it. So I would suggest that even right this second right now, you block off time so that you can start to get into that habit of really setting yourself up for the week on Sunday. And one other thing that I want to mention before we move into the next step, and we've lingered long in this step, but on purpose because it is so pivotal, is that in the planner at the beginning of every month, if you go to the month tab, you'll see there's a place to write down wins. This is where you can write down the wins from last week, right? The things that you can celebrate. They could be things that you received. They might be things that you did that it took a lot of courage or stamina to do. Every week you have wins. So I want you to make sure you also get into the habit of writing down your wins every week. Okay, so now let's see where we're at now. We're here. Let's head over here. Okay, what have we got here? Okay, we're back in the process. Oh, and this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like inside the weekly Momentum 101. So if you go and you get that training for free, the link is below, then this is the tools that you're going to get. You're going to get all of these little videos, and you're going to also get these tools, these worksheets that you can use to follow along in the process. So I just love this process, and I love doing it live with you because it gives us an opportunity to make sure that you're really sitting down and doing the process instead of just getting lost in all of the details. So even if you're not catching every single piece of it, make sure that you're writing, you have your planner or you have a journal or just a piece of paper, and you're doing it as we go through these steps. So we have what I like to call is time dysmorphia, right? Which is that we tend to really think that we can get more done than we can. And there's tools that I've come up with to help with that. For example, one of them is the 3X rule, where every time you're going to plan to do something, you allocate 3x as much time as you think you'll actually need to do it. And that's a great tool that will help you when you do your weekly top 10. Right here, I have the scoring system that I was just talking about. This is, once again, those points. So if you haven't done your points yet for last week, if you do the weekly momentum this week, you can take score at the end of this week. But if you did do it last week, you get to take your score here. All right, so now step 2 is where you realign. And what that ultimately means is, it sounds fancy, it sounds like it's complicated, but all you have to do to realign is remind yourself what your bigger goals are. This step is simply here to remind you to take a moment to go ahead and look at your annual goal and to look at your, if you have one, a 90-day goal. Because if we just look each week at just what's going on at the week, then we may very well end up spinning in circles or just not really making progress towards what's important to us. So I want you to take a moment and I want you to just pull out or rack your brain. What is my goal for this year? And what is my goal for this quarter? And that's the other benefit of the planner, is that the inside front page, you're going to find where you can write down your annual goals so you have them handy. I like to have everything all really easy to locate, and that's why I've set up the planner the way I have. So realign step literally will take you a minute or less to just look at your goals for the year. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted. If necessary, adjust them. And then we move right along to the next step. So that was easy, wasn't it? Right? You got this. You got this. And if for some reason you're like, I don't have any, or I don't know what they are, then I challenge you to get one of my planners if you don't have one. And then to go ahead and write them down this week. Make it one of your weekly top 10 to write down your goals for the year so that you can reference them easily, because we need something bigger to pull us forward more than just planning each week. It's not enough. Now we move into step 3. Step 3, we're now stepping into what I've been talking about quite a lot already, which is the weekly top 10, which is the thing that you score, right? So this is your game card that we're setting up now. So in the planner, what you do is you brainstorm, and I'm not going to go into that today, but I will let you know that I made a podcast episode. It's on my YouTube channel, which is like the best brainstorming tool, or it says brainstorming in the title. It's really good. I break down really the clearest, simplest way to brainstorm so that you get the best list for the week. So I'm not going to do that right here, but I will encourage you that you don't want to just make the list. You want to do a mind map. You want to at least ponder your options before you lock in what your top 10 things are for this week. So as we're in this step, you are literally just putting down, what are the top 10 things that I want to accomplish this week? But I want you to keep in mind the word progress. So when I say progress, what I mean is moving forward towards what you want. Whereas if we just focus on accomplishment and we write things down, well, I want to pick up the dry cleaning and I want to make sure I mail a card to my mom for Mother's Day, right? These are accomplishments. I want to make sure I mop the kitchen floor or whatever, right? These are things that you want to get done. But doing these things won't necessarily move you towards those bigger goals that we just talked about. So I want to plant the seed as we're in this step 3 of creating that weekly top 10, which is your plan for the week. I want to plant the seed that you want to have at least 3 to 5 of the items be things that are making progress, that are moving you forward towards what you want, not just knocking things off, right? It gives us a thrill to check off things, but is it really moving you forward? So really take a moment to mind map, maybe watch that brainstorming video I was just mentioning, and then you're going to pull from all of that mind mapping 10 things that you want to focus on this week, and you're going to write them down as your weekly top 10, your weekly plan. Now, what you also might want to do to set yourself up for success because of that time morphia we just talked about is for each of the top 10 items, you might think about how many pomodoros will it take me to complete this item? And I'm talking about for each one of the items that you have on your weekly top 10. A pomodoro is 25 minutes of focused attention. And so you can use it almost like a measuring stick so that as you're moving forward in the week, that you're making sure that you're clear on how long you think things take. And if you start to use pomodoros as a measuring stick, it's going to allow you to get better at estimating how long things take. So as you look at the things that you've written down on your weekly top 10, how long will each thing take? And start to write down how many pomodoros. Each one is 25 minutes. And that's how you beat Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law is that anything that you say that you're going to do is going to take the amount of time that you set aside for it. Now, that's a little scary and confusing because oftentimes it feels like things take a lot longer. But in your head, maybe you'd set aside no boundaries for what you were doing to end, so it just keeps on going like the Energizer Bunny, right? And then sometimes maybe something doesn't need very long to do, and if you go in with that energy and if you've already decided this is going to take 25 minutes, then you might find that things happen a lot quicker. And if you have any of the items on your weekly top 10 that are going to take you longer than, let's say, 3 pomodoros, that's almost 90 minutes, I would break it into smaller bites. I would make it 2 line items on your weekly top 10. And that doesn't mean you have 11. I'm not giving you permission for 11. You only get 10 or less. But I would break it apart, and then I would take something off the list, right? So this is prioritizing at its best. It's allowing you to really sift through and create the best list. So the final step here is to plug in, and that's where you create the rainbow effect. So what you're doing when you plug in is, and we've already done part of it by figuring out how many Pomodoros, you're looking at your week and you're going, okay, I've made this list of 10 things that I'm going to do. I've figured out approximately how long I think this is going to take. To take it to the finish line, this fourth step of plug in is to plug it into the week, right? So there's a couple of ways we're going to do this. 3 ways, actually. The first way is literally, when will you do those Pomodoros? And if you don't like being all boxed in, I don't like being boxed in completely and figuring out exactly when I'm going to do everything, because the whole point of having my own business is to have freedom, right? So I don't want to lock down every minute in my calendar, but I can add up all the Pomodoros that I'll need for everything on the weekly top 10, realize how many Pomodoros I need, and at least make sure that my week has space for that. I can do that. And then the other piece that I can do after I've made sure that I have room for all my Pomodoros is I can then look at my week and I can go, okay, what does the landscape of this week look like? If you watch the CEO shift, I talk a lot about working in and on your business and making that shift and weekly planning. I really encourage that you watch that. It's such a good training. But what I talk about is this idea of color coding your week as well. So as you look at your week, you can use highlighters. I'm going to keep it simple right now. I'm only going to talk about 2 colors. You can diversify from there if you like, once you get the hang of that. Start out just using 2 colors, blue and green. So your blue is going to be for when you're working on your business, which means basically right now, what we're doing right now is working on your business, planning. It is looking to the future. It is doing things that are not due yesterday. It's figuring things out. It's being the leader. It's making choices, designing what the future of the business looks like. That's blue. So you want to color in and just notice how much blue is on the calendar. And then we have green. Green is working in your business. So that's when you're working with clients or customers, you're delivering products or services or creating them, right? That's where you're doing admin activities and the day-to-day operations. All of that stuff, which probably takes up a lot of your time, is green. But the reason we color code is just so you begin to recognize, a lot of the time is spent in green. And when you realize that, you might be more intentionally with putting some blue on the calendar. The second reason is, I think what you might realize, if you've set up your weekly top 10 correctly, remember I told you to really think about making progress, not just accomplishment and checking things off the list. If you did that, then you probably will notice that the things that you're doing for your weekly top 10 are blue. Just see if that's true for you. It should be. And if it's not, really look at the items that you're writing down. So that's our plug-in step. So we've gone now through all 4 steps. We did it in right around 30 minutes. Personally, when I'm doing it on my own, I like to take maybe about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. I like to linger over it, but I want you to see that you could do this quite easily and efficiently in 30 minutes. And you go through rewind, you ask yourself the questions, you realign, which is literally, come on, say it with me, just look at your goals, right? That's all realign is. Look at your annual goal, look at your 90-day goal. And then we have plan, which is to create that weekly top 10 after you've brainstormed, which you'll watch the video to figure out. And then step 4 is where you plug it all in and you get your head. When you do that, you get your head in the game and you're going to be excited for the week. So that's it. That's the weekly momentum process. You are all set up and ready to launch into an amazing week. But I do want to put out there that if you have questions, please write them in the comments. Please reach out to me, because I love making videos to answer things that people are struggling with or challenged with, or it doesn't make quite sense. There's quite a few pieces to the process. So if it did feel a little bit confusing, just go ahead and make a comment and let me know. Or if there was something that really resonated with you, or that you really like about the process, or you had an aha moment about, please share that with me. I love reading your comments. And don't forget to subscribe so that not only can you come to the Plan Your Week with me, which we're doing right now, I do these about once a month, and you can click to be notified on the YouTube channel if you want to know when I'm going to be doing these every single month. The schedule is set up for the whole year, so you can put them on the calendar now. If you go to my YouTube channel and you click on live, and then you can click notify to be notified of when I'm going live with the Plan Your Week with me. But in between those sessions, which are about once a month, every week I do weekly momentum podcast, and I'm going to remind you of the steps. We're going to weave in some other tools. So that's going to help you really create this as a habit. So make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, share, and whatever you do, create your weekly top 10, and I will see you in momentum. Much love.